If I'm being honest, I was never really excited for this movie. After the monument of stupidity that was Halloween Kills, my expectations for Halloween Ends were so low, they were reaching the Marianas Trench. Not even the trailers for this movie were exciting me. And it really doesn't help when you have your cast and crew say this movie will piss off the fans. That's never a good sign. However, I was willing to give the movie a chance in hopes we get a satisfying conclusion to this series, or at least this timeline. Did we get that? Well, short answer to that question is a big, fat, resounding NO! No! What the hell did I just watch? It sure as hell wasn't a Halloween movie, that's for sure. Set 4 years after the events of the Haddonfield Moron Massacre, Michael Myers mysteriously disappears. After losing her daughter Karen, Laurie Strode is still traumatized, but is trying to move on. Little does she know, Michael Myers reappears in Haddonfield, and is trying to finish his killing spree that he committed 4 years ago, which leads to an epic final confrontation between him and Laurie Strode, but only one will survive. You see, that's what the trailers told you. That's not what the actual movie's about. The actual movie tells the story of a young man named Corey Cunningham, who is ostracized by the town because he accidentally murdered a kid he was babysitting. He falls in love with Allison and spirals down a dark path, against the people who were cruel to him. Laurie completely abandons her 40-year mission and forgets about her dead daughter and decides to write a memoir. Oh, and Michael's in this movie too. Was there anything I liked about Halloween Ends? There's a couple things. All the actors do a good job with their performances even though the material is bad. The movie is shot great, and in fact I'd say this is the best looking of the David Gordon Green trilogy. The score by the two Carpenters and Daniel Davies is great once again, but that's to be expected because John Carpenter is just a great composer. This movie gives us another great opening title sequence with the pumpkins changing to one another, which perfectly describes the movie's theme. And lastly, there are a couple cool kills such as the one guy getting the welding device in his mouth and the DJ getting his tongue cut out. But unfortunately, all the stuff I liked in this movie was overshadowed by all the stuff I didn't like. So let's get into it, shall we? So I described Halloween Kills as being filler galore or the epitome of stupid. Halloween Ends, on the other hand, is false advertising at its finest. The trailers of this movie lied to you. I have not been this deceived by a trailer since the 2016 Suicide Squad. If you were hoping to see this big, epic, badass showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, prepare to be disappointed because neither of them are the main focus of this movie. And then you have David Gordon Green saying, "We never wanted to do a Laurie versus Michael movie. We wanted to do a love story," after the movie came out. Then why would you advertise your movie as something different? You are a fucking liar. Instead, the movie pushes them to the side and focuses on this random guy named Corey Cunningham. And it's not like this character was already established in this trilogy. No, he's just shoved into this movie because reasons. He's basically the main character of this movie. This guy accidentally murdered this bratty kid he was babysitting, and he is treated like the town enemy. This guy, who keep in mind is in his 20s, is even getting bullied by high schoolers. And not just any high schoolers, marching band kids. He has this forced romance with Allison that just comes out of nowhere. Allison just looks at him and then all of a sudden decides she wants to fuck him. There's no development to it. It's just the typical generic love at first sight. Why the hell are we focusing the finale of this series on this guy and not the established protagonist and antagonist? He's not even that interesting of a character. And because this movie focuses more on Corey and not Laurie and Michael, it does not feel like a Halloween movie. You could have just called this movie The Misadventures of Corey Cunningham, Corey's Story, or Michael and Robin, but we'll get into that later. The opening of this movie should have taken place directly after Michael killed Karen in Halloween Kills and Laurie escaping the hospital to go after him. But instead of that, we're thrown into Corey killing the kid he was babysitting. Now, I understand what they were trying to go with Laurie Strode's character, but I just don't buy it. I have a hard time believing that after 40 years of preparation to kill Michael, she would just give up and move on after her daughter was murdered. This isn't something you just get over. She lost her daughter, but instead of continuing her mission, she's like, "Oh, she died. Okay, time to write a memoir." No, that's not how you do it. She does very little in this movie aside from being taunted by the citizens of Haddonfield. Speaking of the citizens of Haddonfield, they go from all being stupid like in Halloween Kills to just being fucking assholes. Why the hell are you blaming Laurie for Michael? She didn't break him out of prison. Like, I get the whole they need something to blame to cope with their own tragedies, but this just doesn't work. Oh, and if all of you are still traumatized, why don't you just move? Michael Myers' treatment in this movie is just pathetic. He doesn't appear until 40 minutes into the movie and he gets 10 minutes of screen time. And before people give me shit like, oh, Michael was only in the original for 9 minutes. Yes, he doesn't have a lot of screen time in the original, but you feel his presence throughout the movie, which makes him more scary. Unfortunately, we don't get the brutal badass we saw in 2018 in Kills. Instead, we get this wounded puppy who isn't intimidating in the slightest. It turns out after the events of Halloween Kills, he's been hiding out in the sewers for 4 years like he's goddamn Pennywise or a fucking Ninja Turtle. He sees Corey and instead of killing him, he looks into his eyes and sees the evil in him, or he transfers his evil into Corey and just lets him go. Here's something that my good friend KitchenAid Whiskey Jones pointed out. So Michael isn't just pure evil, he's just infected with evil and he can pass it along like it's COVID?
What?
Hey Dave, I thought you were gonna put any COVID metaphors in this movie. Wait a minute, hold on. A thought just occurred to me. You have the main characters being sidelined in favor of the new characters, and then Michael having some kind of psychic connection? Oh my god, David Gordon Green is taking inspiration from Halloween 5. Corey becomes Michael's protege and they team up and kill a couple people. Corey gets sick of being Michael's sidekick and then decides to wrestle him for his mask. No, this isn't even worth the Benny Hill music. This is just fucking stupid. Corey wins and then takes his mask. For fuck's sake. I haven't seen Michael be treated as this much of a pussy since he got his ass whooped by Busta Rhymes in Halloween Resurrection. They missed a good opportunity where if you're gonna have Corey in this movie and have him be Michael's protege, have Michael use him just to get back into shape. And then when Michael realizes he doesn't need him anymore, he just kills him and then continues his killing spree. Why didn't you just run with that? Instead, you treat us to Corey dressed up like Michael killing people. That's not what we wanted. The bad comedy from 2018 and the really cringeworthy trailer lines from Kills are still here. While I don't have to hear people say evil dies tonight and 40 years ago every minute, a lot of the dialogue doesn't work. I cringed so hard when Laurie Strode said, "Rip off your shirt and show Grief your fucking tits and say, let's go." I understand what they were going for with that line, but it still came off as really stupid. It sounded like something Rob Zombie would write. And then you have Corey Cunningham constantly saying, "If I can't have Allison, nobody can." You know she can easily find somebody else, dumbass. And then you have the fucking ending of this movie. After Corey cosplaying as Michael kills all the bullies, he arrives at Laurie Strode's house to kill her. She fakes she's committing suicide and then shoots him. And then Corey slits his own throat, and of course Allison conveniently walks in, gets mad at Laurie and runs away, and then Laurie feels sad despite her trying to kill Corey. And then Michael conveniently shows up and thankfully kills Corey. David Gordon Green was like, oh yeah, we gotta have Michael and Laurie fight, so here we go, let's staple it on to the very end of the movie. Yeah, the big fight between Laurie and Michael was so disappointing and underwhelming. Like I said earlier, the trailers lied to you. They kept saying, the final showdown, the big finale, and we don't get that. The final showdown is only 5 minutes and 10 seconds in a nearly 2-hour movie. Thanks, David Gordon Green. And all the fight is just them throwing each other around, and then Laurie throws a fridge on Michael, slits his throat, Allison slits his wrists. They do this stupid funeral procession for Michael and they throw his body in a garbage crusher. I think what would have made this fight a lot better, have Michael and Laurie both kill each other. Go full on Northman style. Yes, it would have been a bleak ending to see Laurie die, but at least she completed her mission. Evil is finally vanquished, Haddonfield is safe, and even at the cost of her own life, it was worth it. In conclusion, it really says something when a movie I wasn't even excited for still let me down. Halloween Ends is a prime example of a finale done wrong. This is the rise of Skywalker of horror movies. I am baffled at every single creative decision made with this movie, and I will never understand what David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, and the 2 other people that wrote this movie were thinking by focusing the entire movie on some other random guy we barely know, instead of focusing on the established protagonist and antagonist. This This is now in my bottom 5 of this franchise, and this is one of the worst movies I have seen in 2022, and I am dreading to see what David Gordon Green and company will do to The Exorcist. Final rating, 1 out of 5. So yeah, those are all my thoughts on all the Halloween movies. And just remember, if you liked any of the movies that I give a negative review to, that's fine. Go ahead and like them. To anyone who subscribed to this channel because of these reviews, I just want to say thank you. When will my next solo review be? Who knows? But in the meantime, you can watch the live show I do with my friends, the Cool Kids, and on Saturday, we will be doing a review of Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.